happy octave of Easter to everyone. Today is the Monday after Easter, and it is an unwritten tradition among many priests that you should never do any work the Monday after Easter. You know, we put so much into Holy Week and all of that. Monday is a very good day to walk away from the office for a little while. So, here I am, day off clothes and all that. Even though I just said I didn't want to do any work, I do want to make one video today while the memories of Holy Saturday and Easter Sunday are fresh in my mind. I wanted to give just that little recap of how that went for me, because it was a momentous year, ups and downs and all of that. And I'm going to skip Holy Thursday and Good Friday, but I want to talk about just the ridiculous ups and downs of Holy Saturday and Easter Sunday. You know, they weren't all bad. Easter Sunday, far from it. So for Holy Saturday, I took the morning to myself. The Easter Vigil, the earliest you can start that is 8 p.m., which is when I started it. I had all day. So I took the morning for myself and went to my office in the afternoon to do a little work before the other things I had to do kicked in. And the first official thing that I had to deal with on Holy Saturday was I got a voicemail. And it was someone that didn't leave his name or his number, but for one reason or another, he threatened to bring 12 people to church for the Easter Vigil. And judging by the spite in his voice, it sounded like he was kind of threatening to do this specifically to get me and the church into trouble. So people came to church that day hoping to have some private time in the church, and I couldn't unlock the doors. I couldn't. I couldn't let people come to church to pray while I had someone threatening me to call not to call the police, but threatening to, break that rule of 10 people or less on church grounds, and I just couldn't risk that. I really do believe that my responsibilities to Christ and the church are more important than my responsibilities as a good citizen. But I don't want to make trouble with the police for such a frivolous reason. I want to be a good Catholic and a good citizen. You can be both of those things a lot of the time. And that really put a pall on my whole day. The idea that someone would say something that hurtful, I won't lie to you, I couldn't shake that for the rest of the day. And I was praying through that the whole day. So with that in mind, I dealt with a few other things. We did minimal decoration of the church, visited someone, prayed a rosary with her. I'm glad I had something like that. And then I celebrated the Easter Vigil alone, which was very sad for me. The Easter Vigil I have come to dearly love. I never celebrated the Easter Vigil before I was a priest. My family has always gone to church on Easter Sunday. But I have come to really appreciate the sacredness of that tradition, and just being alone in the church was just heartbreaking. But it did afford me the opportunity. I have now succeeded in 2 out of 3 of my personal goals for the Vigil. The one I didn't do is 1 year of my life, at least. I want to celebrate the Easter Vigil, and if I don't start it right at 8 o'clock, it doesn't matter when I start it, I want to do an Easter Vigil that lasts literally until the dawn of Easter morning. I want to keep a vigil for Christ all night long to the dawn. I wasn't going to do that this year alone. There's no way I'd stay awake under those conditions. Not without a gallon of coffee anyway. So I'm going to save that for later. That's something I need help with. But I got to do two other things that I can never ever do. See, on the Easter Vigil, you're supposed to read a whole bunch of scripture. There are 6 options for the Old Testament, and then 1 New Testament reading, and then the Gospel. And most churches, most years, pick 3 of the Old Testament readings out of 6. And there are long versions and short versions as well. So, for the most part, you'll read, I don't know, maybe 35 to 45 minutes worth of readings during the Easter Vigil. Is the reason it's such a long service. Well, this year, I wanted to take my time, and because I was just completely by myself and, no one to worry about, I did all the readings, and they were always the long version. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes to just read everything from start to finish. Assuming this doesn't happen again, and I celebrate my Easter vigils with other people, I'm not sure I'll be able to get away with that again. So that was a real pleasure. And the other thing I've always wanted to do for the vigil, there are moments in the vigil where, I've always felt that you should be triumphantly bellowing out your faith. There's the Gloria, there's the renewal of baptismal promises, a few other places. And this year, because I was completely alone when I was renewing my baptismal promises and those other moments, nobody was around. Nobody lives directly next to the church. And at the top of my lungs, do you believe in God, Father, maker of heaven and earth? I do. I wasn't afraid if I'd lose my voice for Easter Sunday. So that was something. And obviously, if you celebrate with other people, that's just annoying and obnoxious. So I'm not actually going to, do that at the expense of someone else's ability to worship. But on my own, it kind of felt good to do that. So Holy Saturday was interesting. And these things that I'm sharing today that made it memorable, I would give them up in a heartbeat if we could go back to having church together. I mean, I'm making the best of a bad situation, but it's just not the same without the people. And as for Easter Sunday, it was my honor to celebrate 2 masses in my churches for, the sake of them. And then I celebrated Easter Sunday on the kitchen island of my sister's house. So it was my parents, my 2 sisters, and the sister who's married with kids, her family. So, immediate family. And it was nice. I celebrate a kitchen table mass with my family every so often. If we have a family vacation that falls over a weekend, we'll do that. It's often easier than going and finding a parish, and when you have a priest in the family, you have that option. And it's always nice and closely knit, so it's a real treat. And we had a really great Easter Sunday as a family. We had a really great brunch after the Easter Mass, which I celebrated around 11:30 or so. We had a fine dinner later on. We took a walk. Just stuff families do in quarantine and all that. But I'll tell you, it was tough celebrating Holy Saturday because I was alone. I could feel that. I could feel it in my bones that on an emotional level I had to try harder to make up for the fact that I had no one to share it with. And for Easter Sunday, I mean, even though I should have been celebrating that with hundreds of people between my various masses, just the ability to spend some quality time with family around the altar of Christ, even though it was technically a, kitchen island, that made all the difference. I mean, hey, 10 people, 500 people, obviously there's a difference there. But 10 people for Easter Sunday, it was enough. It was enough. And I say to this, when I went to bed on Holy Saturday, I was emotionally exhausted from the day. It was actually really hard getting up on Easter Sunday for that reason. But when I went to bed on Easter Sunday, I slept with the peace of Christ because I knew that I had celebrated Easter worthily and well. I fulfilled my responsibilities, obviously, but I also spent time with people who matter to me, my family. And that is immeasurably good. That is immeasurably valuable. And it just reminds me of that axiological truth that I think you've been hearing from me and a number of other priests throughout this whole thing. This whole stay-at-home thing and watching religious internet videos, it's a nice break. I admit it's nice catching up on reading and chilling out at home. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And when this lockdown is over and we can get back to normal life, I really hope that the vast majority of people understand what's missing when we don't gather for church, when we don't gather in peace and in faith. Because that is a huge part of what makes the Mass so powerfully important. We complain about Mass sometimes because we don't like rolling out of bed. For a lot of us, we don't get a lot of time off from our jobs. I've heard from so many people, Father Justin, Sunday is the one day I have to actually relax. And I understand all of that. It can be work to get out of bed, make yourself presentable, and get to church. But it's worth it. And I really want us all to understand that throughout this coronavirus lockdown thing, this is an opportunity for us to remember what life is like when we don't have each other, when we have cut our social dimension, down to a nub. So I celebrated Easter worthily and well. I am grateful for everything I have in my life this year and all years. But I say that with the understanding that this is not the way it's supposed to be. And as soon as we can start gathering together again in a safe and responsible way, I eagerly look forward to that day, and I hope you do too. And I do hope that I can see, if you're actually a parishioner of mine watching this in the area, I hope that very soon I can see you again in person with others, because we need that. And this Holy Week, that was keenly reminded of. That was terrible English, I'm sorry. I was reminded this Holy Week of just how precious that is. So keep that in mind as you continue your quarantine. God bless, stay safe, and thanks for watching.